Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be building a basic menu icon. As you can see right here on my screen, I don't have my little mouse or my pointer as you can see, but I'm going to go ahead and hover over it and then I'm going to click on it. And as you can see, when I click on the little icon menu, it is going to transition into a little different design, more like an X, or if you want to go back to normal, to a little menu tab. So this is really useful for your navigation bars for your mobile devices, or just for your standard application, your web app online for a regular static site, however you'd like to use it. We're gonna just use basic HTML and CSS. It's really not that difficult to make, and you can change it to whatever color you want. All right, let's get this started. Alrighty, here I have my code editor opened, and I am going to be using Atom. I have my index HTML page and my styles page. I'm gonna get my HTML page up and running, and we're just gonna make sure that it is working. Hello world. A lot of people like to just open up their Finder and just open it through there, but I myself am a fan of Node.js and just like to start up my own little server on here. If that is not your preference, the other way to open it is just by simply going onto your little Finder and clicking onto the right-clicking onto the index page, and then going to open with either whatever internet browser you want to use. I have Safari, Firefox, Google Chrome, but I'm using Google Chrome on my on my Node.js server, and my HTML page is working. Alrighty. So let me just go ahead and turn this off. Make sure it's off. Cool. All right. So that is working correctly. And then let's go ahead and link our style sheet. I want to make sure I'm connecting to the root folder since we're on the same folder. And then let's begin with our divs. We need a div for the wrapper, since we're gonna be having 3 little lines for our icons. We're gonna be wrapping our 3 divs inside a wrapper div class, or container as other people like to call it. Wrapper, container, the same concept, just your preference of class name. And then inside we're gonna have 3 different classes as well. Let me just go ahead and put that. And they're all gonna have different class names as well. One's gonna be bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, obviously because we have 3 different bars like I was just explaining. We're gonna have 3 bars, and that is it. That's honestly it for our HTML page. So we're gonna go ahead and open up our style sheet, and let me go ahead and raise up the font a little bit just so you guys can see. Not sure if you guys can see. And we are going to get our container inside our HTML by calling it in our style sheet. And then the container, we're going to give it a display of inline block. As you can see, my Atom gives me a little description of what inline block is used for. If you guys don't know what some of these properties do, I will leave a link in the description to one of the very famous websites that I like to go on whenever I need to check my web docs or like my information. It's called developermozilla.org. This site right here is one of my favorite ones. It gives you technologies from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, even to graphics, HTTP, etc., etc. So if you guys want to learn more or get more in depth on how some things work, I highly suggest that you check out the website and search up whatever you need to search up and need to learn about. All right, so my cursor, I want my cursor to be a pointer. So whenever I hover over it, my pointer is going to be obviously a pointer, my cursor. And now what we need to do is grab our div classes with our bars, with our bar class. Sorry if that was a little confusing. We are going to be grabbing the div elements with the class names that we put for bars. We're going to get bar 1, bar 2, and bar 3. And by doing that, we are just going to get bar 1, get a comma, bar 2, another comma, and bar 3. All right, now that we have all of our divs with our bar classes, we can now give them some styling. All right, what we are first going to do is give them some width so they can have obviously that line effect. We're going to give it a 35 pixel of width, and then we're going to give them a little bit of height, which is going to be 5 pixels. I believe that's a pretty good amount. And then we're going to do color, we're going to make it black. And then we're going to give it a little bit of margin. Wait. So I want you guys to see what we are going to work with. So let me go ahead and start up the server again, and then start up the so this is originally what it would look like. As you can see, we have the 3 divs. All 3 divs are right above each other, and if I were to add a little bit of margin to each of those divs, then they will be getting their little effect, which is going to be giving them a little space in between all of them. And then we're going to give it a transition of 0.4 seconds. The transition isn't going to be working just yet, just because we have nothing to transition to it. But for now, we are just going to leave it as that. And then if we go back to the server and restart the page, you can now see that all of our little icons or div icons are separated. I'm going to zoom in for you guys. So you see how they're spaced out, evenly spaced out. All right. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and give it the rotation effect. So we want to rotate the first bar from the div, and what we want to do is obviously make another class in our style sheet that doesn't exist in our HTML, and we are going to call that change, and then we're going to grab obviously the first bar, and we're gonna give it a transform of rotating negative 45 degrees. You are gonna need a little bit of math on here. It's not that difficult. I mean, if you, as long as you know how a 360 works, then you know your degrees. All right, so then we're gonna translate it to -9 pixels. Oof, I forgot the 9. And then 6 pixels, because that's the way we want it. Next, we are going to, I forgot the 1. This is we're going to be targeting the first bar. Next, we're going to be targeting the second bar. But the second bar, if you guys remember, we didn't have a second bar when we were turning the menu icon into an X. It was just 2. It was one bar, and the other bar, it was an X, I mean 2 lines. So we're going to give the second bar an opacity of 0 because we want it to disappear when we do the change. Because we're going to be adding a little bit of JavaScript as well. I forgot about that. I forgot to mention we're going to be using just a little bit of JavaScript just to change the classes. And then we're going to go ahead and then target the last bar, which is going to be bar 3. And then we're going to go ahead and transform that from rotate with, I believe we're going to make it positive. It's going to be 45 degrees positive because the last one obviously was negative. So we want it to go the other direction. And then we're going to translate it to -8 pixels and -8 pixels. And this is what we're going to be changing our divs to, since we're going to be adding the change bar. I mean the change class. But that's not here. That's where JavaScript comes in. But like I said, I forgot to add my JavaScript, so I'm going to go ahead and add my script page now. So let's go ahead and open up our JavaScript. All right, now that we are inside our JavaScript page, we're just going to add a simple function for our our change in effect for our class, because we want to add the change effect. And we're just going to pass in an X for whatever call we're going to use, and then we're going to use X for the div, and then class list. We're going to use the property toggle, since it's going to toggle between the classes, and the class I wanted to toggle through is going to be change, because that is what we obviously had in our style sheet. So now I need to add my function into my HTML page. Now that could be a little tricky for some new users if you guys are not familiar with the onClick attribute. If you were to use the onClick, obviously when I click on this container, since it contains all three divs, whenever I click on this or invoke, when I click on the div, it's going to invoke my function, and since whatever I passed in my parentheses, I'm gonna name it on here, which is gonna be my function. It's gonna be this, because I want this to run the function, and this is going to be substituted as X, and when X is identified as this container, it's going to add the class, the toggle change. So it's going to toggle through change whenever I click on this container, and I can show you guys by adding my my script tag first, by adding my source, and I'm going to go ahead and grab it from the same directory. It's going to be script.js, and that should work perfectly fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and run the server again, and it should be working. Now when I hover over it, as you can see, my cursor changes, and then once I click on it, it does its effect. As you can see, the second div bar disappears because we made the opacity go to 0 when we I gotta stop clearing my throat, I'm sorry about that. When we add the change class for bar 2, the opacity goes to 0, and then the first bar and the third bar will rotate their directions as we have for the transform. Did you guys see how easy that was? Not that really difficult. Pretty easy. And it gives you a pretty cool animation. You can use this for your websites, your mobile applications, any other site you want to use. And we can go ahead and just shut this off real quick and change it to whatever color you want. If you have a website that is green, hey, we can go ahead and easily go into our style sheet, change up our color, and boom, we got a green nav bar, or menu little icon. Boom, pretty simple, right? Well, hopefully I was able to teach you guys a little bit of CSS and a little bit of HTML, not too much of JavaScript. We'll get into that a little bit later, since I'm just starting off with basic HTML and CSS, since I want to get better at explaining my code and these elements and properties and values, attributes, etc., etc. But thank you so much for joining and tuning in. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section below. If you feel like I could have done a better job at explaining myself, please let me know, because I will take any feedback and absorb it to become a better developer for I myself, and obviously for my team and my coworkers or clients, whoever I will be working with. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.